Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be the part 2 of accrual configuration, and today we're going to see how we can create the actual accrual policies, and we are also going to test them out after we create the policy. So we're going to create two policies, so stay tuned for that. And prior to that, my apologies, I couldn't create the part 2 earlier than what I thought. Because I'm not really sure if you guys are finding the videos helpful. In case if you find these videos that I'm creating on Kronos helpful and informative as well, so please do subscribe to my channel so that I know that you guys are liking these videos, and that way I will know that these videos are also helpful and informative as well to you. So if you haven't had a chance to subscribe, please do subscribe and like this video, as well as if you have any questions, comments, clarifications, please put them down in the comment section, and mostly I try to reply back to you as early as possible, and I will do that for this video as well. So let's get started and go right into accruals. Now I'm sure by now, if you have seen my first video on accruals configuration, that was the part 1 that I did a few weeks back. You might have gone through in that video we have gone through all the building blocks. So if you haven't had a chance to go through that video, I would recommend to first watch that part 1 of the accruals configuration, so that you will be familiar with all the building blocks. And in this video we are not going to cover the building blocks because that was already covered. So I'll put the I'll put the link in the description so that you can watch the part 1 of the accruals configuration, and then you can go over this video as well, and that will make more sense. So in this video we're going to cover mostly the accrual policies. As you know, accrual policies, they differ based on the organization, the industry, the country that you are in, and in fact it can differ from different states as well. So if you are in Australia, the different states may have different leave policies, especially the long service leave that can be quite different from one state to another. And then if you are in the United States, you may have collective agreement or collective bargaining agreement that will define the vacation hours, or that will define how much or what will be the accrual policies for union employees. And then you may have non-union or exempt employees, non-exempt employees. So each country, each state, each organization will have the accrual policies defined as per their company norms, or as per the legislative requirement or statutory requirement. So it is highly impossible to incorporate all of those things in one video or in one demonstration. So what I have for you is some of the common practices when it comes to the organization when they define the accrual policies, or some of the common practices and some of the common configurations, rather I would say the most common configurations that I have seen based on my years of experience that the companies are currently using. So I'm going to show you one policy, the first one that we're going to create, so that you know what is the expectation and what you will see in the company policy. So here is the company policy that you can see in front of you. And this is what we are exactly going to configure as well. So let's go through the company policy about the vacation. So this is specifically for vacation. Today we're going to create two policies. This is one of them, and both of them will be vacation. The difference would be one of them will be yearly and the other one will be monthly. So let's get started with the first one, and then stay tuned so that you will know how to configure the other policy as well. So let's go over the first policy, which is right here. It says company policy states that the new hires vacation hours will be prorated based on the month of joining in the year of hire. Every subsequent year thereafter, the employee will receive the following on Jan 1st. For less than 5 years of service, employees will receive 80 hours. More than 5 years, employee will receive 120 hours. For any employee who completes more than 10 years, will receive 160 hours. In terms of probation, there is no probation period. 40 hours can be carried forward to next year on Jan 1st, and anything over 40 hours will be lapsed. So that is a pretty simple one to get started with, and we're going to break it down and understand the policy which is related to the vacation, so that we understand what are the different configuration building blocks that we would need for this. And let me also tell you that this is quite a common configuration that you will find, especially when you're dealing with vacation configuration. So that's why I picked this one. That again, there can be a lot of complex situations as well, which you will learn over a period of time. But to get started and get yourself, if you're pretty new, then this will be a good starter for you. So let's break this down, accrual policy, and see what we have. So the first one, if you see the first line, that's one of the key things that you need to know in your policy, which states that there is a proration that the company has. Okay, so you can see that based on when the employees are hired in the year, their vacation hours needs to be prorated. What that means is somebody who works the entire year, let's say if you're entitled to get 24 days in a year, so that's like 2 days per month. So if you start in the month of Jan, and then you will get 24 days by the end of the year. But if you join in the month of November, November is your joining month, so you will only get 4 days for your year of hire. So if you join in 2020 in the month of November, so you will get 2 for November and then 2 for December. So that is what the requirement is, that the hours of vacation should be prorated based on which month you join. But after your first year, whenever you join, the subsequent year thereafter, you will be receiving based on your tenure or year of service. So less than 5 years, you will get 80 hours. Then less than 10 years, you will get 120 hours. And if you complete more than a decade, then you will be getting 160 hours. So that means the grant amount is changing based on the length of service. So in the first one, we've seen that you need to have a date pattern which will start from the date of hire, right? So we would need one date of hire, one date pattern which will start from the date of hire or the anniversary date. And for this one, we would need a grant building block, as well as we would need another date pattern, because this one is yearly on Jan 1st, right? So we'll have to create 2 date patterns. Then we'll have to create a grant which will be yearly on Jan 1st, and the length of service will be from the anniversary or the accrual date of hire. And then you don't have to create multiple grants for this. Like the building block, we will see that we can have everything in one, including the proration as well. Then there is no probation period. That means you do not have to wait There is no waiting period for you to start using your own grant. And then so no need to create any probation period building block. And then there is one carry forward. That means you will have to create limits, and the limit will carry forward 40 hours on Jan 1st. So we can use the same date pattern here as well, as you can see. Okay, so that is the policy, pretty simple and easy one to configure, so that it's easy for us to get started with. And we know now that we've gone through over the policy. Let's go into the application and see how we can create this. Now, as I said, I'm not going to create all the building blocks, because you by now know how to create them. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an accrual policy, and then I'm going to show you those building blocks which we've created earlier, or which I've created earlier. So let's go with the first one. So as I said, for the very first condition that we have, that the new hires vacation hours will be prorated based on the month of joining in the year of hire. So for this we need to have one date pattern which will be starting from the accrual date of hire. Okay, so let's go to our, you obviously would need to start off with the accrual code. So you will have to first create the vacation accrual code. So that's the first thing that you'll start off with, in case if you were to create all the building blocks. And then we would need two dates, reference dates, to be more precise. One would be the person specific date, and the other one would be the site wide date. So these are the two dates that we would want. The first one, person specific date, we would want accrual date of hire, which will be the hire date again. Now we would need the accrual date of hire because we would want to know how we would want to tell the system how the proration will work. So the proration is based on the month of joining. So we can only know how much to prorate if we only know when the employee has joined. So for that we would need the accrual date of hire. And then because the grant thereafter, or starting the next year, will happen on Jan 1st, so we would need a site-wide date so that we can use in the date pattern. So these are the two, person specific date and one site-wide date, or two dates that we would need. So if you are doing a configuration which is similar to this, make sure that you create these two person specific dates and site-wide date in your configuration as well. Now once the date is set up, then we'll go to the date pattern. So here we have to create two date patterns. So I'm going to show you which are the ones that we're going to create, or rather use. So obviously this is the one yearly from Jan 1st. This is the one that we're going to use for this policy as well as for this requirement. Okay, so this is on Jan 1st, the carry forward happens, as well as yearly on Jan 1st the employees will get their grants. So we would need one date pattern that will be yearly from Jan 1st. So if you open this up, you will see that this is using the same reference date, the one that I showed you a while ago in the date building block. So this is the reference date, and this is the frequency. And one important thing that I would like to highlight is the naming convention. Make sure that if you are creating, if you're working for a client which has presence in multiple countries, then make sure that you create a naming convention such as global yearly from Jan 1st, rather than putting a country prefix here. Like if you have multiple countries, then the best practice is to keep the country prefix. But if you're using it for you can reuse this for any other country, so it's better to name it generic, so that you can reuse it for any of your countries in case if it is multiple country setup that you're working on. So you can also preview this, as I said earlier in part one of the accrual configuration. I said you can also preview this so that you know that it is happening each year on Jan 1st. So once you click on preview, you can see that right here. So you can see that each year on Jan 1st, 1999, 2000. You can also change the date here if you want to, date, year, and then you will see that the dates are falling on subsequent year, and it will also show what date, what day that date will correspond to. So that's the very first one that we're going to use, which is yearly from Jan 1st. That will help us for these two requirements. And then we're also going to create another date pattern which will help us for the proration one, and that will be the anniversary date pattern. So here it is. So we're going to use this one, which is yearly from anniversary date. And if you can see, even if I do not open this, you can see what is there inside it. So you can see the reference date is the accrual date of hire. Okay, so the reason we change the one important thing that I would like to also tell while we are here. So when you go back to dates, so you can see that the actual anchor date here is the hire date, but for some reason, if you want to change the hire date, you cannot change the hire date, right? For example, you may have an employee joining as a senior director or a senior VP in your organization who has more than 20 years of experience. So, but in your organization, as we just seen, the accrual policy says that if you work for more than less than 5 years, you will only get 80 hours. But this person who's having 20 years of experience cannot, maybe would negotiate and say that I cannot settle down for 80 hours because I've got 20 years of experience. So then obviously because it all depends on your hire date, and based on the hire date, if you complete more than 10 years, only then you're going to get 160 hours. So in no way you're going to change the hire date. So the only thing that you can change is this person specific date that you created. So that's why you can create multiple date names here, though it will be connected to your hire date, but which you cannot change, but we can change this, and I'll show you an example of this in a while from now. So that was one important piece of information that you should know, that why we create this, and though the anchor date again will be the same as a hire date for everything that you see here. So let's go back to date patterns. So we've seen what we're going to use. We're going to use yearly from Jan 1st, which is having the reference date as Jan 1st, and the frequency is yearly. And then the second one that we're going to use is yearly from anniversary. So this is going to check the date of hire. Okay, so that is how the system is going to do the proration. So if he's joining in the end of the year, that's how the system will know, because we are using the reference data as this. So we've got our two date patterns ready, right? And then we also now would need this one is something that this piece is something that we're going to do in the accrual policy. So let's go to the grant and create a grant, and in that grant I'll show you how you can also, okay, let's do the limit first in the order of the building block that we have. That's a good practice. So let's go to limits and see if we already have one, so we can use that one. So our policy says that 40 hours can be carried forward to next year on Jan 1st, right? So again, what we are using is Jan 1st. So if you go here, this is the one that we're going to use, January 1st carryover limit. So it's a pretty simple one, limit building block that we have. Again, remember the naming convention. On January 1st, the carryover should happen. So that's what specifically we've mentioned, January 1st carryover limit. Now, in some scenarios, the carryover limit might not happen on Jan 1st. It may happen if you're granting on fiscal year start, which could be something different, like maybe April 1st, and you want to have the carryover happen on the same date or maybe on a different date, other than what example I gave, then make sure that you mention that on in your name, so that when you go to your accrual policy, you know which one to select, the right one. Post that naming convention, then the date pattern is the one that we've seen in the date pattern building block. That's the one that you will attach it here. And then maximum forgive negative balance and minimum. This is something that we've discussed in the part 1 of accrual configuration. So if you want to get to know something about it, please do review the part 1 accrual configuration. So this is a limit building block, so I have it already there. Now let's move on to the grant building block. The grant building block is something that we're going to create so that I can show you how you can use this feature, which is the prorating feature in this, which is something that came up in version 8.1. Prior to that, there were other different ways of creating proration. Maybe you had to create a new accrual policy altogether and then push that to the main bucket and then have another carryover. So you might have to create multiple accrual policies, or they could have been different ways of doing it based on the requirement. But with version 8.1, they have this feature that they came up with, wherein you can do the proration right here based on different parameters that are defined here. So we'll explore that based on a requirement. So let's name our grant, which is going to be, again, as you can see, the grant is going to happen on January 1st. So let's name this as okay. So vacation yearly grant of Jan 1st demo, that's the one that I have. And under grant type, you might have noticed earlier we have two types of grant. One is fixed grant and the other one is earned grant. In part 3 of the accrual configuration, I'm going to cover earned grant, so you can look forward for that. For now, we're going to stay as fixed grant, the default value. The date pattern that we're going to select is not 90 days because ours is yearly. So I'm going to switch to yearly from Jan 1st. And then the award grant section is going to be repeatedly, because we want this grant, whichever, like 80 hours or 120 hours, 160 hours, to happen every year and not one time. I will also show you some example which will be one time, but for now in this policy, as per the requirement, is going to be repeatedly. The expiration, this doesn't expire, but when we do the earned grant, that's when I'm going to cover the expiration. For now, let's skip all of these things and let's go right into prorating. Now, if you observe, our policy states that the new hires vacation hours will be prorated based on the month of joining in the year of hire. So this is proration is based on the date of hire. And if you look here under prorating, the options that we have is based on date of hire, based on date of hire and contract end date, and you can read the rest from here. But the question is, which out of these are we going to use, right? You might wonder whether we should be using the first one. Now, the closest would be the first and the last, or rather, if you skip the none. So based on the date of hire, or you might say also perhaps based on date of hire anniversary, because it also has anniversary. But and then you also have these two other options, but along with this, it also says contract end dates and user defined periods, which we never spoke or read in a policy. So these two are something that we're not going to use. And based on date of hire anniversary, again, if you select this option, you can see that there are a few more options that populates here, right? These are the ones that again use similar to the ones that we have in date pattern. We are not going to use this at the moment because we do not need any of these options for the policy requirement that we have. Okay, so our policy doesn't have these requirements wherein we need to have this option, any of these options. So the one that we're going to use is based on the date of hire. So if he joins in the month of Feb, it's going to calculate from Feb till the end of the year. And then again, it can also calculate based on the day, or rather based on which date in that month you've joined, and the system can do the proration from there as well. So I'm going to select based on date of hire, and then yeah, pretty much what I wanted. Save and return. Now that's what we created. Let's go right into the accrual policy. And we're going to click on new. All right, so here we go. When it comes to the policy name, this also makes a lot of difference, and as you, or based on your experience, you might have seen that the naming convention plays an important role, especially if you have a huge different requirements, so to speak. For example, you may have union employees, you may have non-union employees, you may have union employees based on different policies, or they can be different, like local 25 union employee based out of Colorado, or non-union employee or non-exempt employees based in Seattle. So you can straight away give the vacation name if it is a pretty simple one and you don't have many different accrual policies that you have to create. You can straight away give vacation. But again, if you're creating this for exempt employees or non-exempt employees, it is also best practice that you include that in the policy name, so that it becomes easy when you have to tag this to the accrual profile. So for now, we're just going to make it as a vacation. All right, and the accrual code that we're going to use is vacation. Then the next one, we don't have any probation period, so we don't have to worry about it, but we're going to see probation period in the next accrual policy. So the next accrual policy that we're going to create, we're going to see the use of probation period, so you can stay tuned for that. The length of the service, is the yearly from the anniversary date. That's the one that we're going to pick up, so that we know the system can check the length of service based on the anniversary date. And we do not have any accrual for overflow. So accrual flow for overflow is when you have to whenever there is a carryover limit, then you can move the hours from one accrual bucket to the another one based on the date that you define. We can do that, but I will show you another way of doing that in case if you want to use multiple accrual codes, because then you need to have additional steps for that. So I'll try to make it simple and show you some alternatives and best practices. And then adjust balance on FTE change. So if you have this check mark, then it will check your FTE amount or the percentage that you may have defined in your people record. And generally, if you can use this for part-time employees, so that you don't have to create multiple accrual policies for full-time employees and part-time employees as well. And then whenever there is a change in the full-time equivalency percentage or amount from 100 to 50 or 75, the system will do a recalculation of the hours. So if it is 80 hours, and if your percentage is 50, then it will make it 40 hours, and likewise. But in our requirement, there is nothing mentioned of this, so we're going to keep this as is. And then let's go right into the grants. Okay, so grants, and the grant that we were using is vacation yearly grant on Jan 1st. So let's go back to the policy and see what the first grant is all about. So less than 5 years of service, employees will receive 80 hours. So this is the one that we're going to do first. So 80 hours is what he's going to get if the employee is working from or rather working less than 5 years, rather, not 5. So what this means is from 0 year till less than 5 years, 0 to 5 years, employee is going to get 80 hours, right? And then from 5 years onwards up till, let's add another row, and this will be from 5 years, more than 5 years, employees will receive 120 hours. For employees who complete more than 10 years, will receive 160 hours. One more thing, I have created this accrual code which is hours based, but the same setup can be used for a day based accrual code as well. So you just need to use days here rather than hours. So this will be 10 years and the grant will be for 160 hours. So what this means is 0 to 5 years, if you're working length of service tenure is 0 to 5, you'll be getting 80 hours. If you are somewhere between 5 to 10, you will get 120 hours. And then if you've completed 10 years or more than that, you will get 160 hours. Now it can go on, like if you have 10 to 15, then you may get 200 hours, so on and so forth. Again, it depends on the policy and the company norms. So here we go, we've got this one, and then we have a limit. When it comes to the limit, it says 40 hours will be carried forward to next year on Jan 1st. Anything over 40 will be forfeited. So let's go to the limit. We already have a limit which is January 1st carryover limit, and then we are going to use 40 hours, right? That's what it says, the policy, 40 hours. Let me double check. Yeah. So that's done. Then comes the taking section, right? Now, while we are here, just to let you know that this section where we say limits, here we've used the carryover limit, but this can, in this section, we can also use earning balance limit. We don't have here, but based on the requirement and the setup, you can also use earning amount limit or earning balance limit, so that how much you want to restrict the grant to be earned, or the balance in that grant bucket, you can restrict by using earning balance amount or earning amount limit. Okay, so the taking pay code is the one, as you know, the employees will, when they request something on the application, they will be selecting a pay code. So that pay code is the one that we are selecting, or for that matter, the pay code edit as well. If a manager has to do a pay code edit, so that's the one that they will be selecting. So this is the pay code, taking pay code. So that would mean that along with the accrual code, the first thing that you will have to do is to create the pay code. And if you want to know more about pay code, how to create them, then we have the 20 days of Kronos configuration series, and in that series, the very first day video, day one video, is all about pay codes. So you can see that video, how to create pay codes. Now, when it comes to minimum taking and taking increment, if you remember in the part 1 accrual configuration, I've explained what this means. So in our accrual policy, we do not have anything specifically mentioned, but companies as such, they specifically, these things they do not mention in their handbook, in the company handbook. Like for some type of leave, they may mention first half or half day or full day, but more often than not, you will not see these things specifically mentioned in the associate handbook or the company handbook, which has all the leave policy or the accrual policy. So that is the reason that you will have to speak with your with your business partner or the client or customer to understand and get this requirement during the discovery phase or the initial workshops that you do with the client, because later on then once during the testing the client will definitely raise this. Let's take an example so that we can test this out. Minimum taking is 4. What that means is some companies they would want you to take at least, if you cannot just take 1 hour of time off from your work. So the minimum that you can take is 4 hours. Okay, so that's like 4 hours. If you want to apply for a time off or vacation, you should be taking minimum of 4 hours. You can take more than that, but you cannot take less than 4 hours at any given point in time. Now, some companies do not encourage their employees to take in odd numbers like 5 hours, 7 hours, 9 hours. So you can restrict that by using the taking increment. So I can make the taking increment as 4, or let me make it more realistic, 2. So what this means is the minimum I can take is 4, but what's the max, or what's the other? Can I take 5 hours? Can I take 7 hours? Can I take 8 hours? Can I take 9 hours time off? Well, if I don't give a taking increment here, that means if an employee wants to take for 5 hours, yes, sure, you can take that because the minimum taking is 4. I'm taking 5. But if I put 2 here, that means after 4, any hours that he or employee has to take should be in the increment of 2. So that means it will be 4, then 6, 8, 10, and it will go on. If you put 5 or 7 or 9, you will get a good nice error. So that's what the minimum taking and taking increment does, and we're going to test this everything. Whatever we are doing, we're going to test that in a moment from now. Restore taking, we don't have to do that specifically for FMLA or bereavement leave, or maybe some other type of leaves like jury duty. You might need to have a restore taking, which restores all the taking that you have taken in the last year or in the last pay period, or all takings or whatever takings that you have, each taking. So these are the two options that you have. Maximum taking limit. Now you can set up a maximum taking limit as to restrict an employee from taking certain number of hours in a week, in a month, or maybe in a quarter, right? So for example, let's take here vacation taking limit. Now again, these are some of the things, as I said, minimum taking increment, or minimum taking increment, maximum taking increment. More often than not, you will not see these things in the handbook. So you will specifically have to ask your client or your business partner whom you're working with as to, do you have anything, or would they want anything like this, provided they know what's the functionality all about. So maximum taking limit is you can restrict somebody from taking certain number of hours in a week. For example, in a week you cannot take more than 32 hours. Okay, so anything more than 32 hours will be restricted. And you can also put a warning. Let's say if you take 24 hours, anything after 24 hours or 24 hours, you will start getting a warning saying, hey, you're about to reach the kind of threshold after which you will not be allowed to take. Right, so that's the thing. And then we're not going to test anything about the overdrafts because the policy doesn't say anything about it, but we're going to test this in the next policy. So we're going to create some requirement wherein we can test the things we are not going to test in this particular policy. All right, so maximum taking limit, we can see if we can cover this as well in testing. I'll have to recheck on the pay period that we have, but let's save this. Let's make sure that we've got everything that we wanted. All right, So I'm going to click on save, and yeah, save. Let's create an accrual profile real quick. Now, accrual policies are not the ones which are assigned to the employees. It's the accrual profile that is attached to the employee. So when you create an accrual profile, again, the naming convention very important in entire, not only for accruals but anything anywhere across the application. The naming conventions has to be thoughtfully named. Again, if you have like full-time employees, part-time employees, union, non-union, exempt, non-exempt, and specifically for any particular region, Victoria or New South Wales, and they have something different than, if Victoria employees have something different than New South Wales, then you got to specify that in your accrual profile. So because that's the one that you're going to attach to your employee, which we're going to see in a while from now. So let's save this. Again, here one more thing about this one is display, where you have two options. One is hidden and visible. Obviously by default the option is visible, but you can hide some of the policies which you do not want the employees to see. Those could be some qualifier policies or any other policies that you might have created but you don't want them to be made visible. So again, remember, the profile names or the policy names is not something that the employees will see. The employee will see what is the accrual code that you have assigned in that particular profile. And when we speak about accrual code, one more thing that I would like to inform you is you cannot have two accrual policies with the same accrual code in one profile. So you can see this policy has vacation pay code. If I try to create another row and add another policy which has this same pay code, or rather accrual code, and try to save, I haven't seen this, but I'm assuming this also has vacation. So let's try to save this. There. So you can see this accrual profiles may not contain accrual policies governing the same accrual code. So you cannot have two accrual policies with the same accrual code, otherwise you will get this nice red error. So let's get rid of this. Alright, now save this one, and now once this is saved, we're going to tag this to our employee, which we have here. So this is our employee, and we're going to go to, first we're going to check what is his hire date. So because hire date makes a lot of difference, right? Because that's the first factor in our accrual policy and configuration as well. So his joining date is 6/15/2020. So that's June 15, 2020. So he should be getting half of what he's supposed to get in a year. So let's go to accruals and leave, and this is where under person, accrual and leave, this is where we tag the accrual profile. The start date will be the hire date, that is June the 15th. The end date will be forever. Okay, so you don't have to put an end date manually, but rather you can select forever. One more thing about the accruals and leave, as you progress further, you will understand that the accrual profiles can change. For example, you may have, after 2 years, he may be assigned to another accrual profile, and after 3 years, he may be assigned to another accrual profile, and then he may go on leave of absence. So you might not want to grant him anything while he is on leave of absence. So you can have different accrual profiles without having any continuity between the two accrual profiles. So you can have gaps, so that's absolutely fine. For example, you end it on December 1st, and then on Jan 1st you have another accrual profile assigned to him, so that's fine. As long as you have an end date here, you cannot have two accrual profiles with the end date as forever. One has to have an actual end date. All right. Now you also have some more options here like FTE. This is the one that I was referring to when we saw that option or checkbox, which is this one, full-time equivalency, and based on the percentage or the hours that you define here, the hours, the grant hours can change. And then you also have cascade profile. I'll talk about it later. So for now, let's go right into, we've already signed this, so we'll go into the employee's time card and test this. Okay, so now it's time to go to the employee's time card and see what we have done, whether that works as per the requirements or not. So here is the accruals. Okay, now you can see that there is 80 hours, right? So this is our vacation and this is accrual available balance, which is 80 hours. So that's what the employee would get because he joined last year, which is 2020, and we are in 2021. So he's supposed to get that 80 hours for the, from the subsequent year. But we are interested in what happened when he joined. So when he joined, which is on 6/15/2020, there should be a proration, right? So let's go back to our time card, and for one more thing that I would like to tell you is for the accruals to show the projection as well as to start calculating the accruals, there is one important step that you will have to do, which is to give punch on the hire date. Okay, so this is his hire date. Okay, so now you see on his hire date, which is 6/15, there should be some balance, or rather he should be getting something, right? Because or he should be getting something from there on based on a prorated basis, right? So but as of now there is no punch on that day, so we're going to do that manually. This is one thing that you will have to do a lot when you're doing testing. So just give something randomly and save this. Okay, so now there you go. So now you can see that there is something available. Earlier there was nothing in here, so it was completely zero. But now when we put the punch, so that means he started off his service with the organization on 6/15. So now he's getting around 43 hours and 42 minutes, right? We can round this up or round this down later. We can see that how to do it. So I'll show you how we can round this as well, make it rounded. But now, how did we come to 43? Now, if you remember, he is supposed to get 80 hours in a year, right? And he joined, when did he join? So he joined in June 15th. So if we check 80 hours divided by 12, so that will give us 6.66 per month. And if you multiply that with 6.5, so because he's joined in the middle of the month, mid-year, so that will give us to 43.33 hours, so which is something that you see pretty close to is what you see here as well. So that's the calculation that system has done, 43 hours and 42 minutes. And then if you check on let's go and do some more testing. Rather, let me give Jan first so that you can see the carry forward as well. So now let's go right at the bottom. So by the end of the year, because he's completed just 6 months, so that's what he's getting for that year. Now what should happen on Jan 1st? Let's see. Alright, so he's getting 120 hours. Now technically it is 120 hours, but do not get confused with this one, which says more than 5 years employees will receive 120 hours. No, this is not the 120 hours for this one, but this is 80 hours plus 40 hours. This is the one that we are looking at. So 80 plus 40 is 120, right? So that is what the employee is seeing here. Okay, if you want to be completely sure about that this is the 80 hours that he has got for Jan 1st grant, the subsequent year that he is supposed to get, plus the 40 hours of carry forward. Again, if you remember, he's got 43.42, but if you see this policy says anything over 40 hours will be lapsed. So he has lost 3 hours and 42 minutes there. And you can actually verify that, and it's a good practice while you're doing. This is the good troubleshooting thing that I'm going to show you, which you can also use while you are doing your configuration. You can run a accrual detail report, so that way you will be able to see what happened exactly. So let's go right here, accrual, expand and click on accrual detail. You got that employee selected already, and give a date range. That's what you see here. So I'm going to click on run report. Refresh. It might take just few seconds because you're running it for not more than few seconds. Okay. All right, so on 6/15 he has earned 43 hours and 42 minutes. Okay, so that was his balance as of that day. And then what else? On Jan 1st 2021, adjust carryover limit. So anything over 40 hours will be lost. So he lost 3 hours and 42 minutes. Then his running balance came to 40 hours. At the same time, on Jan 1st, he's supposed to get his yearly grant, which is 80 hours. So 80 hours plus 40 hours will make it 120 hours, right? So though he has, you can see the total is 123.42, but his actual grant that you will see is 120 hours because he's lost this 3 hours and 42 minutes. So this is one way to actually check if you are ever in any kind of doubt or situation where you need to figure out what happened, how did the calculation system do the calculation. So it's always good that you run the accrual detail report. All right, now what else we need to test in our configuration? So let's go back in our policy and see a few more things that we can test. So first thing that we got to see that the proration worked well, and then we've seen that the grant happened for 80 hours on the Jan 1st of the subsequent year. Now let's assume that the employee complete 5 years, so that would mean that he should be getting 120 hours, right? So 120 on Jan 1st. So let's make this employee as if he has completed what, 5 years. Now that's what initially also I said at the beginning, when you have to change something, you cannot change the hire date, right? Because there could be some other things that will be connected with this. If this is the system of records, you obviously cannot change this, and obviously you cannot change the date of hire. So that is the reason we create those accrual date of hire. So here on the person's dates, you can, though you cannot change the actual date of hire, you can certainly change the accrual date of hire, right? So here you can see there is an option called as override date. So here if I go to override date and change this to, let's say, 5 years from now, okay? So let's make this as 6/15, and let's make it as 2015. So that will be close to more than 5 years, right? Based on 2021. So that will be more than 5 years. So let's now check. Let's ignore this for a while. So if we do this, that means we are telling the system that he has completed 5 years and now he should be getting 120 hours and not 100 or not 80 hours, right? So let's go to his time card. I'm just going to refresh the time card by going through the time card again. And now look at this. This is 160 hours. Earlier, if you notice, it was 120 hours, right? So if you see 120 hours that he's got plus the carry forward of 40 hours, that makes it 160 hours. Again, if you want to make sure that this is happening correctly and he's getting everything that he should be getting, you can run the accrual detail report, right? So now you can see that he's getting that, but there is one problem here. Not a problem, but it could lead to a problem, or it could lead to a lot of queries, or it could lead to confusion, right? Now, if I look at this from an employee point of view, now from an employee point of view, you would not be able to actually determine whether the carry forward that you were supposed to get from the previous year, you could actually see it here, because you cannot see it here, right? You cannot see it here, see from this screen that whether you got the 40 hours from the previous year or not, because all you can see is 160 hours. So there are two ways of actually making it more employee specific, so that the look and feel as well as the visual representation of the numbers make it easier for somebody to understand it. So that you know, okay, 40 hours are coming from the previous year, and then you own 120 this year, so that's why your balance is 160, right? Because if I do not know anything and I see 160, wow, I got 160, but it's not 160, it's 40 hours plus 120 hours. So one of the ways we can do this, and that is something that I would personally use, is to change the navigator, right? Change the navigator, have a couple of more options available here. There is another way of doing it, is to use the accrual overflow, but again, if you use this, there is additional steps that you will have to use, which is cascading policies that may be time consuming. So but that is another option which you can explore, and you can, if you're comfortable doing that, you can do that. But I would give you another option, show you another option. So let's actually change and make this screen more easy for anybody to understand. So I'm going to go to the navigator, and then I'm going to add one option after another, and we will go to time card widget part, and we're going to select this one, time card accruals widget part. Okay, so here, this is what you can see currently. If you see the fields here and compare it with the fields here, that's what exactly you will see. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the opening balance, right? So how much your opening balance was. So let's put that here. You can change this, or at times the system does that too. Now let's go to the time cards and refresh it, so that it takes a while for the changes to load up here. If it takes some time, you can also log off and log in back. I usually go and refresh it this way. Again, if this doesn't work, then you can probably sign out and sign in back. Now then, here we go. So you can see the accrual opening balance is 40, right? So this is what I was trying to say. So try to make it more easy for the end users to understand and read your the balance. So now I know that, okay, from previous year I got this year 40 hours, so that's why my opening balance is 40. and but still, again, you do not know how much you earned because it nowhere says how much you earned. So let's go back to our navigator and let's see if you can add there, this one, accrual earned to date, how much you earned. Add that here. You can rearrange it just by dragging this and putting it wherever you want. I'm not going to do that, I just did that anyway, so I'll just put it right here and save this one. Okay, and then refresh it. Well, if you want to refresh the way I do, I just go to this page and then click on go to and then click on this, and then you can see the magic. And there you go. So this is where you can see now how much have you earned. Accrual earned to date. This is what you earned. This is the 120 hours that you earned because you've worked for more than 5 years, so you're entitled to get 120 hours. And apart from this, you've got 40 hours, which was the opening balance. That means you've carried forward 40 hours from there, and that is the reason 120 plus 40, that's why you see accrual available balance as 160. Does this make sense? Does this make it clear? Right? If you think this makes sense and what I showed you really makes sense, and if this is something that you can try, do like, so that do like this, click on the like button so that I know that this is something that you learned, and that is one way to tell me that this is cool, this is a nice feature that you learned. And just click on the like button, and if you want, you can put a message in the comments as well if you have anything to say about this. This is something that I would use, I have used as well in the past, but again, as I said, you can also use a carryover if you would want to have some additional steps and put the cascading step there as well. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this just for so you know how you can do that. In case if you do not want, all you need to do is you need to get rid of these ones, that, and then it will be back to how it was, right? All right, so let's go back to our accrual configuration. So we tested this grant, it is working fine. We tested the carryover limit, it is working fine. Now let's test our minimum taking and taking increment. So what that means is, if you apply for 4 hours, yeah, you should be allowed to do so. But if you apply for, let's say, 5 hours, no, you cannot. Let's check that out. Okay, so I'm going to just refresh this one more time. All right, so I'm going to apply a pay code edit, and let's do 4 hours. That should be smooth. Let's go and do another one, and this time we're going to play around with this. 5 hours, save. Vacation edit must be an increment of 2. There you go. So that means this one is working. Now if you try to make it 7, let's try that. This cannot be made, this edit cannot be made. That's exactly what we configure, right? Now if you make it obviously 6, which is in the increment of 2, yeah, sure, that will get through. There we go. Right? So that's how the increment work, right? And then you also have this taking limit. So that means that you can take maximum of 32 hours in the vacation taking limit, which is I think weekly here. So let's give it a try. So that means anything over 24 hours you should be getting warning, and anything over and above 32 you should not be allowed to do so. So I'll make this 8, and I'll make this 8 as well, and I'm going to add a vacation here of 8 hours. So that's 8, 16 and 24. Let's save this one, and now let's add another one, and this time we're going to add 4 hours. Let's see what happens. There we go. You get a message saying, warning for this edit, you have exceeded the taking limit warning level of 24 for vacation. Do you want to continue? Yes, absolutely. It will allow you to continue, because here it says this is the warning amount. This is not going to restrict you. What is going to restrict you is this 32 hours, right? So now let's make this changes here. Let's make this as 32. So that will actually be 32 hours, and that's all that you can do. Again, you get this error, rather warning message, so which is fine. So that's it, 32 hours. Now anything beyond this, even if you try to do for 4 hours, system should not allow you to do so. So let's try it out. There we go. Sorry, the maximum taking limit for vacation is 32 hours. How about that, right? So that's how you can set up the system. You know that system is pretty highly flexible, and accruals can do a lot of things. This is just few things that I'm showing you, but there are a lot of things, even if there is a complex situation, you can achieve it through accruals. At times some things, really, if that doesn't meet your needs or requirements, you can also take the help of interfaces to meet your requirements. Alright, so let's proceed further and see what we have that we haven't tested so far, but it looks like we've tested everything. Overdraft is something that we're going to test real quick in another policy, and we will also test the probation period. So far it looks good based on the testing that we did, right? So important thing, again, whenever you're creating a vacation policy, try to get as much information from your client, all right, and try to do a lot of testing, just like the way we did, right? And one more thing that I would like to show you is, okay, let me just refresh this. In fact, you know what, I'm just going to get rid of all of these things so that we can use the same employee for our other testing. But prior to that, I would like to show you something else. So what is that? Let's go back to the employees hired it again. If you look at the employee's hired date, which is 6/15, so you can see that this employee is getting 65.34 hours, 65. So that's like he's supposed to get 120, because now we've changed his year of service, right? So he's joined in 2015 based on that, and so anyone who completes more than 120 hours gets 120 more. Anyone who completes more than 5 hours rather gets 120 hours. So I'm not going to change the date of actual hire, but existing one that we have, I'm going to show you something, and that is the rounding. So you see here it says 65.34. So what I'm going to show you is how you can use the rounding rule. Again, this rounding rule is not the punch rounding rule or the interval rounding rule that we've discussed, but the concept of rounding up is something that we can discuss, right? So here, if you see, it is 65.34, and nobody's going to use that for 4 minutes, or maybe it doesn't make sense to keep that 4 minutes or maybe 5 minutes or 1 minute there. So the company might say, hey, you look, I see it is 65.34 hours, 65 hours and 34 minutes, but I want to make it rounded. So yeah, sure, we can do that. You can suggest to the client, okay, how do you want it to be rounded? Round up or round down? More often than not, the company may say round up because it is more than 30 minutes, right? Or the company may say anything less than 30, round it down. So I'll show you how you can do the rounding. So that will be one more example for you to learn. So let's go right here. So currently 65.34, so we are trying to round it to 66, right? So let's go here, and there is one option, which a building block rather, which says accrual round rules. And this is something that we're going to round up. So let's name it as, click on new, and we're going to do it for half hour round up. All right, and then under the rounding unit, this is the mandatory field. In fact, all the 4 fields are mandatory. Select based on your accrual code, which is hours for the one that we have, which is vacation. And then what else we need to do is a rounding increment. We are going to round in what increment? That increment is going to be 30 minutes, right? So let's make it as 30 minutes, and then you can keep the threshold as round a threshold as what you see there. Okay, now let's go quickly save this and then go back and go to your accrual policy and tag that right here in your policy. And then here you see there are 2 options, right? One is apply individual rounding. We're not going to do individual rounding, but we're going to do apply combined rounding. Okay, so once you select this option, that's when you get the option to tag the building block that we just created. So it's going to round the entire hours that we've seen on the time card. Let's save this and go back to the time card and hit refresh. And let's do this quick testing. There we go. How about that? So if you like this one, you got something new that you learned, do hit the like button. Okay, so 66 is what, again, you can do it round down as well. But again, I've used the most common scenario where employers might want to round up. Okay, so we've seen a lot of things in this accrual policy itself. And now I'm going to show you another one, which is something that we're going to try for monthly, right? This one is annually. We're going to try something which is monthly, so that it will be something that we can test for the probation period as well as overdrafts. So let's create another policy. Let's click on return and let's click on new. And this time the accrual policy that we're going to create is going to be some let's take a scenario where the client says I want employees to get their vacation hours on a monthly basis, right? And something that they should be getting at the end of the month, right? So at the end of the month, each month they should be getting their grant. And the grant is something like, if they work from the first 3 years, they should be getting 8 hours. From 3 to let's say 6 year, they should be getting 10 hours, and anybody who works more than that, they will be getting 12 hours. So 0 to 3 and 3 to 6. So that's the length of service that we're talking about. And again, obviously you will have the probation based on when you hire. So we're going to use the length of service as anniversary, again the same thing that we've used earlier. Okay, and limits, we're going to carry over more than 60 on Jan 1st. Okay, anything more than that will be lapsed, and they will be an overdraft. That means, because it's monthly, right, it makes more sense. Because it's monthly, employees are going to get the grant monthly. They may not have enough balance to take time off, so we're going to give 16 hours of overdraft. Okay, so that means they can go negative at 16. So let's see how we can create this one. So let's quickly name this one. I'm going to name this as Union Vacation Demo. Accrual is going to be the same, vacation. Now this time we're going to have probation period of 3 months or 90 days. So we got this one here, so I'm going to use that one, 90 days probation. And length of service is, we're going to use the same length of service because it is again going to check annually from the employee's date of hire. The grant is going to be monthly. So let's see if we have something which we can use. Monthly grant for vacation. And if it is the first year, employee is going to get 8 hours monthly, and then after that employee is going to get, from the third year, if you complete 3 years, then you're going to get 10 hours. And then if you work more than rather not 3 hours, 3 years, you get 10 hours. And if you work more than 6 years, you get what is that, 12 hours. So again, based on your length of service or year of service, you're going to get those hours on a monthly basis. And then you have the limit. On Jan 1st, you can carry over up to 60 hours, right? So in a year you may get, for first year, 96 hours, so you can carry over up to 60 hours. Anything over and above that will be forfeited or expired. The taking pay code is still going to be the same, which is vacation. And the taking increment is, you can take half, and minimum taking is the same one. I'm not going to use maximum taking limit because that example we've already seen. So what we're going to tell is they can take overdraft of 16. So overdraft means how much negative you can go, and to mention that you have to give a positive amount. So we're not going to put 16 in negative, but you're just going to put a positive 16 or number, and in the overdraft section, and here as well. So this is for the past, and if you want to go for the future, just put the same number. And if you want to tell the system or the employee, hey, you're about to reach your threshold to go in negative, you can also put a warning amount. We can test this later. All right, so pretty much what we wanted. So let's save this. So again, to emphasize on what we did, we are creating a monthly grant, considering the employees are getting the grant on a monthly basis with a probation of 90 days. And again, there will be a proration based on when you joined, and you can carry over up to 60 hours in a year. And there is an increment of 4 with a taking increment of 4 and overdraft of 16 hours. Let's save this. Let's go back to our accrual profile. I'm going to get rid of the one that we already have, because we cannot have the 2 accrual policies with the same accrual code. So I changed that one right here. Now I'm going to save this one. So this accrual profile is already attached to the employee. All I need to do is just to make the previous one, just to change this one back to his actual data file, just to clean up what we did in the previous scenario. All right then, so let's go and test our scenario real quick. Okay, so we might have to, all right then, let's go to the hire date and see how much he is getting on the hire. Yeah, it might 48 hours is something that he will be getting. So that's the accrual pending grants. Let me refresh and see if this has been loaded, and then we can test it again. Time card. Oh, we are on the time card already. So let's open the accrual policy so that we have that in front of us so that we can verify it. Let's go to our union vacation demo. So this employee has is supposed to get 96 hours in a year on a monthly basis. So each month the employee will be getting 8 hours, but there is a probation of 90 days. So that would mean if you go to the employee's time card, let's go back to well, it doesn't look like the refresh has happened, so let me just sign out and sign in back. So I've logged in back. Let's go and find our employee. Find that. So here is our employee. Let's go and check our configuration. Let's go to the employee's time card. At the same time, I'll open up the configuration as well so that we can verify real quick. Here we go, and let's go back. So this was our configuration. Let's go to the time card, accruals. So this is what we see currently, but let's go to the hide it, and let's see. As of now there's nothing because we've added the policy, new policy, and I'm going to put a punch, and there we go. So now if you notice, there is this accrual available balance as 0, but there is something other than that which you also see in the bracket with the P. So that means this employee is actually in probation period. That's why that P is there, which shows in brackets that this is the probation period that's going on. And if you look at a configuration, he should be getting 8 hours, but those 8 hours he would be getting at the end of the month. So let's check till the end of the year, and then while we do that, we will also check for the end of the month so that we see that 8 hours of credit. So let's go right at the bottom, which is the month end, and there you should get 615. Okay, let us check whether that was, why is there no, okay, maybe let me check if there is, because that particular grant should get, okay, all right, I get it. So he would be getting the grant once he completes the first month, which would be on July 31st. There we go. So that's the where I was missing out on. So 731, once he completes the first month, and that month end he would be getting 8 hours. But if you notice, this time it says +8, so he's got 8 hours, but he cannot use those 8 hours because his actual balance is 0, but he's accruing it, he's earning it. And if you go to the next month, which is right here, he should be getting 8 more, so that should be 16, and then his probation period should complete somewhere after 90 days from his joining, so that should be somewhere here. Let's check 9/16, and there you go. So now he has 16 hours which he can use, and by the end of this month he should be getting 8 more hours, so that'll make it 24 hours, right? And for the rest of the year he's getting more 24 hours, so you see that in the printing grants. So now let's quickly test our configuration. So we've got this 90 days which we've seen, and we can see that he's getting 8 hours per month. Now let's quickly do some, okay, let's check our carry forward as well, which is 60 hours that he can carry forward. So let's go to right at the end of the year, which is 31st. So by 31st he has around 48 hours, so that means he can carry forward the entire 48 hours to next year. So let's see that if that happens. Okay, so here, so he's got 48 hours which we've just carried forward from the previous year. This is the one, and then for Jan he will be getting at the month end, right? So if you check for Jan, so by the end of Jan he should be getting around 8 more, so that will make it 56. So let's quickly test our configuration. So let's go right here, and there we go. So that's 56 hours, and he's, for the rest of the 11 months, he's going to get 88 more. So that will be 88 hours plus 56. That is going to make it 144 hours that he has. But what I'm trying to do and show you is something interesting. So let's go back here. Let's say 16 hours is what he has, right? As of this date, 21st. Now what we're going to do is we tested probation period, and rest of the things we've already tested in the previous policy. So now we're going to test something which is this one, overdraft. That's the piece that was left out. Now this is where we're going to test this now. So let's go to the time card and see whether this overdraft works or not. Now at the moment he already has balance, so that's good enough for him to take 2 days off. So let's quickly do that. Let's do a punch, and there we go. So that will make it 8 hours that he would have, and that you can see here he has taken 8 hours, so the balance is 8 hours. So let's do it one more time. Vacation 8 hours, save that record, and now he's got nothing because he's taken 16 hours that he had. Now as of now he has nothing because the one that he's going to get is at the end of the month, but before that he has nothing. But what if he has to apply? He wants to go on leave. He doesn't have anything, but he still has to go off, right? Take time off. Now as per the configuration, let's say company allows him to take -16. That means he can go up to 16 in negative, and that's the exact setup that we have. So he should be able to apply for 2 more days. However, we are going to see what happens once he covers, or rather applies for more 8 hours. Does he get that warning message after that, or what happens if he covers or completes his 16 hours? So let's go right in and put another vacation, which is going to be for 8 hours, right here. Let me get that. Okay, so we're going to do this one more time. So now he has -8. There we go. You can see that -8. And this time I'm going to apply for 4 hours because the increment allows us to do that. Okay, so let me just make it 8 hours. And then that's like your... Okay, so we have -8. And let's go to another one and save this one. There we go. So this is the message that you got, which says vacation balance on this date is -16. Do you want to continue? Yes, you can go up to -16, but you cannot go beyond that. The system will allow you to do this. So let's go to our... Where did that go? There. Now if I were to go back to 28, now if I try to apply for another 8 hours, let's see what happens. Would the system allow, or wouldn't it? It wouldn't, because it says maximum overdrawn is 16, and that's the threshold that we kept it. So that's how it works. So overdraft, remember you have to give a positive amount here to allow employee to go in negative. All right, so we did quite a bit of testing, almost everything that we did so far. We did 2 accrual policies. One was yearly, one was monthly. Next, in part 3, I'm going to come up with a day-based accrual code where we're going to see either sick or personal, and then I'm also going to create earn grant, and then I'm also going to show you some more accrual related configuration that you can do while you're working on accrual. So I hope you found this video informative and helpful, and I hope you learned something new in this. If you did, please hit that like button, and also do subscribe and share. And if you have any questions, comments, and clarifications, put that down in the comments section, and I'll see you soon in the part 3 of this Kronos Accrual configuration. Till then, take care and see you soon. Thank you very much for watching till the end.